are gathering in.
Let me also say I appreciate the great work we had yesterday from Michael Allen, Sister Barbara, when it came to our blood drive. What a great, successful blood drive. With them, we had 23 people signed up for the blood drive, which is the lowest amount we've had signed up, but we had 23 units of blood. How awesome is that? To have 23 units of blood. They say, how do you do that? We still had 2 deferrals, but we had 1 walk-in, but we had 4 power bloods, which is a fantastic amount. But that means, I put 24, but there was a miscalculation on that, but 23 is the second biggest blood drive we've had yet, and that's fantastic. And so their workers were amazing. But Michael Allen and Sister Barbara did a great job getting people checked in, and we appreciate that so much. Tonight, we're going to talk again about 9 words to live by. Now, what I'm sharing tonight, when I teach these particular fruits, I never tell anybody when I'm going to teach on this one, because of the fact that this is the one that everybody wants, but nobody wants to hear how to get it. And it's patience. Because we all want patience, but we don't always want to do what it requires to get patience. This is what the Bible says in Galatians. It says, but when the Holy Spirit controls our lives, he will produce this kind of fruit in us: love, joy, peace, patience. And we know the others that come with that after that. Patience. Again, I've been pastoring going on 25 years, and I can't begin to tell you how many times I've had people come to me and say, Pastor, would you pray for me to have patience? And when they ask me that, I pray a specific prayer for them, and then they say, no, don't pray that. But I pray biblical prayer. Because when I pray, when somebody asks me to pray for patience, I go and I say, God, I pray that you send them the biggest trial they've ever had in their life. Oh no, I don't want that. The Bible tells us that's how you get patience, actually. And I'm like everybody. I'm one of the most impatient people in the world. If I am getting ready for something, I'm generally early, and I'm impatient to get started with it. I mean, it's just kind of the way it is. And I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait on anybody or anything like that. That my patience gets graded a lot on that. But it's one of those things we have to have. And now again, all patience is not equal, and all patience is not necessarily what we have to have. We're going to talk about it in just a moment a little bit more. When we ask ourselves the reasons we should exhibit patience as a word to live by, I want to tell you why we should do this. In the book of James, it's a long passage, kind of. It's not really a long passage, it's just a lot of words in it. Beginning in verse 7 of chapter 5, it says, "Dear brothers and sisters," he says, "you must be patient." The must is an important word here. We know patience is an important word, but it says you must be patient. "As you wait for the Lord's return, consider the farmers who eagerly look for the rains in the fall and in the spring. They patiently wait for the precious harvest to ripen." Now, in this particular passage right here, it says you must be patient as you wait for the Lord's return. You know, what happened is these disciples thought that Jesus was going to come back soon. And they're told by James, while you're waiting on his return, you got to be patient. Well, he's been gone 2,000 years. We're still waiting. And there's some of us that go, well, God, I'm still waiting on you to come. And, we're not supposed to hasten his return. Only the Father will hasten the return of the Lord. And so we have to be patient. We look at, my mama tells me all the time, and she's really good at warning folks about all the bad stuff that's going on in the world. And I'd say if she was here tonight, she's really good at telling people about those things because she wants to warn them about the rapture, and that is true. And she says, I know that the rapture is going to happen in my lifetime. And the rapture may happen in your lifetime, but we don't know that. We don't know that. We have to be patient when it comes to that. Although we want to go to heaven, we don't want to have an escapist mentality, and that's what he's telling them here, that you got to be patient. And he says to be patient like the farmer. Now, how do you know farmers are supposed to be patient? Now, not all farmers are patient. I watched my dad go outside every day during the summertime, and when it wasn't raining, he'd say, the farm is going to burn up in the field. We need rain. We're going to lose everything. We don't have enough rain. We don't have enough rain. We don't have enough rain. It's not, and he would go and he would sit out, he would stand outside and he would watch, hoping that it would rain. And guess what? You can't watch and make it rain. It just doesn't happen that way. God's going to make it rain when he chooses to make it rain. Now, I believe in praying about things like that. When there's droughts, we should pray about it. I believe people prayed about it this year because we were facing a drought here in northeast Arkansas, and God opened the windows in July, didn't he? And the crops are looking wonderful. And thank God for that. But there are parts of our state that still haven't gotten rain. There are parts, but we got it. And God bless us. And our area has probably, I guess, Patricia, probably some of the biggest crops in all of Arkansas is in northeast Arkansas. We have the best cropland. And so we're tremendously blessed. But farmers have to be patient. My dad would then go out when it would rain. He'd say, it's raining too much. Or it didn't rain enough. It needs to stop. We're going to go run water first. He was not a patient person. But farmers are supposed to be patient because that's the one job in life that you really, all you can do is plant it, you can till it, but you can't control it if it grows or not. They seem to have more control now because of irrigation, but they didn't have that back then. So that's why they were supposed to be patient. He says, you too must be patient. So he's talking to other Christians. So he says, you too must be patient. So here he says twice, you must be patient. He even tells us about the patience of Job in this passage. And how Job had great patience and what he had to endure. And how did Job get patience? He endured some crummy times, didn't he? That's how he got patient. So God gives us his command, and it's obviously there for a reason. that's going to build something in us. So, this takes us to this fruit in our lives. What areas in our life do we need to be patient? First, we need to be patient with our relationship with God. As Christians, we need to be patient. And the psalmist said this, wait patiently for the Lord, be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord. Now, we're people that believe in prayer. We believe in miracles. We believe in divine touches by God. But what do we find? That sometimes we go for prayer and it doesn't happen then. And we feel like God let us down, don't we? And we're supposed to be patient with those things. God's not on our time frame. God doesn't do things on your time frame or my frame. And not everybody grows the same. And guess what? Not everybody gets the same blessings in their life from God. Sometimes people struggle in different areas. You know, do you ever wonder why some people who are good Christian people struggle with money? And some people are good Christian people, and it seems like they got plenty of money. And they never back down. Some people, they struggle with temptation when it comes to maybe those addictive things, and other people don't struggle with that. Some people struggle with their temperament, and some people don't have a struggle. And you're like, well, why is that person so even killed and doesn't have a heavy temper? And why do I fly off the handle? Well, we're all different. There are different fruits that are manifest themselves in our lives at certain times, and we all grow at different levels. And so, you take two people that have been a Christian for 10 years, and they're not going to both be at the same level spiritually. Even if they study the same, even if they pray the same, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be at the same level spiritually. We have to be patient on God when it comes to those things, but we also have to be patient on God when it comes to those needs and those areas that we've been praying about and asking God for. Listen, things don't happen as fast as I want it to when I'm praying about certain people that I'm wanting them to come back to the Lord or to get saved. And I knew one woman who prayed for 50 years for her husband to be saved. It was over 50 years before he got saved. Another woman whose husband was a desperate alcoholic and a violent alcoholic, and they were married 29 years, and she faithfully prayed for 29 years. But then I know some people who get married and that person gets saved immediately, and we have to be patient when it comes to those things. I'm reminded of the story in Matthew 15. It's one of my favorite stories in the Bible, and it deals with patience a little bit. The Syrophoenician woman. This woman has a daughter that's got a really bad problem. And this daughter is either demon-possessed, the Bible says she's vexed with a demon, either she's possessed or she's just out of control. We're not sure exactly what that means. And so, listen, all parents go to God about a kid. If you've got more than one kid, then you know they're not all going to be the same. And you pray for all of your children. Sometimes there's that one that makes you want to pull your hair out, go in the backyard, and y'all can point fingers at him, and go in the backyard and scream at the top of your lungs, or as I did one time when this one got under my skin, I just picked him up and body slammed him when he was a senior in high school, and yes, picked him up, body slammed him. I was bigger then. Montavious, I was a lot bigger than them. It's good to see you too, buddy. But you had that, and this woman had this with her daughter, and so she goes to Jesus, and first the disciples say, "Shoo her away." So here's the patient part first. She's got to fight through the disciples. She's not going anywhere. They're wanting to shoo her away, and Jesus says, "Don't let her come on." And then she comes to him, and she says, "My daughter's vexed with a demon." And you know what he did? He didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. Now, this woman had some patience and persistence, but she'd been patient with this for a long time. But she went to him, and in her patience, now see, an impatient person, you know what an impatient person would have done? When Jesus wouldn't say anything to her, an impatient person would have walked off as if she could have found another way. Then she says this, the Bible says she screams out, she says, God, Lord, help me. She screams at him. And then you know what he says to her? He says, oh, it's not good for me to give the meat from the children to the dogs. He called the woman a dog. Every time I read that, it reminds me of that episode of Andy Griffith. Anybody watch Andy Griffith? The episode of Andy Griffith when Barney tries to, when they're trying to get a date for one of Thelma Lou's cousins, and Barney says, well, she's a dog. Anybody know that episode? Yeah. He calls her a dog. You know, how terrible. That's awful. That's awful to call somebody that. Can you imagine now? If you call somebody that now, you're all over social media. Can you imagine somebody tweeting, Jesus just called the Syrophoenician woman a dog? I can just see somebody tweeting that right now, laughing about it with the laughing emojis and stuff like that. And I don't do emojis. But the fact is, she then, in her patience, after being called a dog, stayed with it and said, my daughter's worth more for me to be patient on. And that's why, Sister Marjorie, we want to be patient on those that are in this box. And we've got their names in that box and continue to pray for those. In Psalms, he tells us in Psalm 37, don't be impatient for the Lord to act. And I want to encourage you, don't be impatient for God to act. He will act, but he does it in his time. And I believe he knows what's best for our time. And it's important for us to understand that. The second thing we need to be patient with, and it's hard sometimes to be patient with our relationship with God, our relationship with others. Ooh, that's tough right there. I don't know if I have enough time to even go on this one. In Ephesians 4, he says, therefore I, a prisoner for serving the Lord, beg you to lead a life worthy of your calling, for you have been called by God. Be humble, gentle, and what's the next part say? Be patient with each other. Well, that's good right there, to be patient with each other. You know what that says, Mike? You got to be patient with me. You got to be patient with me. I'm talking to you. You got to be patient with me, okay? But we have to learn to be patient with other people. And that's a hard, challenging thing. And one thing we have to realize is don't put standards on people that we put on. We can't force people to be like us. Now, I'm not talking about as a church, and I'm not talking about us not practicing holiness. I believe in holiness. I absolutely believe that we have certain standards for living. But what I'm talking about is I shouldn't expect everybody to be like me. Okay, I'm a person that I myself want to be on time. I don't need to be impatient with somebody who's late all the time. Because, well, I don't know, their circumstances may be different. Everybody's got a different set of circumstances. Or for you, you need to be patient with me. And again, this month, or not this month, next week, I'll have been here 12 years. And so, I know you're sitting there thinking, that's 5 years longer than the tribulation. Okay? But some of you that know prophecy will get that, right? Okay. When I came here, I followed a guy who'd been here 20 years, Brother Buchanan. And the only thing I asked, when I came here, I said, please don't ask me to be him. I couldn't be the guy who'd been here 20 years. I couldn't be him. I had to be comfortable in my own skin. In fact, I had left a church that I had been at 10 years. And so I had been at the church where I had been for 10 years. That pastor that went after me, he called me every week and he said, how did you do this? How did you do that? And finally I told him, I said, listen, brother, I said, you need to do things at your own speed. I said, if it was supposed to be done the way I was doing it, I was supposed to still be there. But I'm not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be there. And he wanted my schedule. And I said, don't practice my schedule because you're not me. You got to be you. I said, whoever's complaining to you about you not being me, complain to me about me being me. And so I said, don't worry about it. I said, you have to be comfortable in your own skin. But you were so patient with me that I didn't preach the same way Brother Decatur did. I didn't do things the same exact way that he did. The big thing, I had respect and still do for how he did things, and he respected me enough for how I did things to allow me to come in and be a pastor. And so those were things, you have to be patient with me as a pastor, right? Because sometimes I'm not going to do everything that everybody thinks I should do. And that's okay. Because that's where being patient with people is important. Now, where do we cut off here? When it comes to sinful things we don't accept, right? Now, we can be patient with sinners, but we're not to be patient with sin. Now, they're two different things. Sinners and sin are two different things. And so, look, everybody's going to have people that get under their fingernails, right? I mean, you're going to have some people that get under your fingernails in life. And some people are going to annoy us. Some people are going to get on our nerves. It's just going to happen. And that's where our patience gets exercised. And we have to work even harder at it. And yeah, even I sometimes, even I know that there's some things that are going to get under my skin. And so there are people. I had a guy text me. It's not somebody from our church, okay? I have a guy that messages me every now and then. He's a big Hog fan. And he messaged me the other day on Messenger, and he says, "How you doing?" "Good." He says, "You ready for football season?" "All right." And I'm trying not to get my hopes up or anything. And then he asked me this. He says, "Do you subscribe to ESPN?" I thought, where's he going with this? "Sister Connie, you'll love this." And I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Can I have your login?" I said, "No." I said, there are only 5 people that get my login that I know of. I have found out there are others that have it. But there are only 5 I give it to. They're in my family. And unfortunately, some of them give it to their boyfriends or their other family members, and they gave them to their roommates when they were in college. But I said, "No, I'm not sending you my login." I said, that wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be right. Please don't ask me for my login information. Those passwords are important because I have other things protected under those passwords. But I had to be patient with this guy. I had to be patient with him. I wanted to be nice about it. But every time I get a message from him, I won't lie to you, my skin crawls. Because he's going to ask me something like that. Every time I get a message, I think, oh, man. Oh, don't look at me like that. Be patient with me. That was nice. Sometimes that 2-letter word "no" is all you can say, right? That's it. A hot-tempered man stirs up dissension, but a patient man calms a quarrel. So a patient person can calm things down. And we need those people in our lives that can calm things down. We have to be patient with other people. My goal as a pastor is not to change you. My goal as a pastor is to point people to the one who changes them. You see, I can't change you. I've got plenty of things in my life that need to be changed. My goal as a pastor, it's not to change you or anything. My goal as a pastor is to point you to the one who improves you. Because that's who's working on me. And that's where we've got to be. We've got to be patient. When a new person comes to the Lord, and that person comes and they give their heart to the Lord, how do we expect them? We expect them to act like I've been saved 34 years. Do we expect them? We shouldn't, should we? Of course not. When a new person comes to the Lord, I expect them to make mistakes. I expect them not to be perfect. I expect sometimes them to be zealous and sometimes overly excited. And those are the things that I expect. I don't expect a new Christian to act like those of us who have been Christians for a long time. We shouldn't. We have to be patient for them to grow, shouldn't we? And that's where patience comes in for other people or young people. Listen, young people need our patience. I know we in here, we're not the young ones, but young people need our patience. They tremendously, from the little ones up to the teenagers, up to the ones in college and young adults. They need our patience. Folks, 23, 24 is not what it was when I was 23 or 24. 23 or 24 wasn't when I was 23 or 24, wasn't like it was when my mom and dad were 23 or 24. My wife's grandma got married at what, 15? 14. 14 years old? I think she was 14. 14 years old. Can you imagine? I mean, that's kind of like Jerry Lee Lewis type stuff, right? I mean, no, we don't know. She might have. We're not going to go into y'all's Papa Lot. Poor Danita and poor Tanya. We're not going to go there. We'll talk about the Pankies, right? We got plenty of those. But, well, not like Papa Lot. But we have people on the FBI's most wanted list, okay? But we can't expect people they do things in a different way. You know, again, in 1945, when people got married, it's a whole lot different when people get married in 2022. The young people, they're different. You know, the average people had kids in their late teens, in the 40s. The average married couple don't have kids now till they're 29. It's a lot different, isn't it? Yeah. That's why I'm not a grandparent. And so we find that we have to be patient with people because life is different. So be patient with young people. I want to encourage you, be patient with how young people dress. Be patient with how they talk. Not disrespectful, I'm not talking about that, but be patient with those things like that. Be patient with those. When I first went to Marion, I remember I asked Brother A. Willingham, I said, how do people dress on Wednesday? I knew how to dress on Sunday. When I went on Sunday morning, I wore a three-piece suit. You know why I don't wear suits hardly on Sunday here? I'm the only one. If I put a suit, I'm it. I'm the only guy wearing a suit. Not one other man in the church wearing. There's so many ladies wear nice suits and stuff like that. But I mean, you know, and I still wear them because I like them. But you know, so I said, well, you know, if half the guys came in wearing three-piece suits, I would too. You know, but when I went to Marion, I wore a three-piece suit on Sunday morning. I asked Brother Willingham, how do they dress on Wednesday? He said, we dress real casual, just a sport coat. And I walked in with a sport coat, and on Wednesday, he didn't even have a sport coat on. And so I did away with sport coats on Wednesday. He taught people, when he did MIP, he taught ministers to wear a suit when they mowed the lawn. He taught that. I've mowed lots of lawns, Brother Kim, but I ain't never wore a suit when I mowed one. And I'm not getting my good suit out in that grass. I don't want grass stains on my suit. But he told them to do that. Times have changed since when he did MIP in the 70s. Times have changed in those. Be patient with people. Wardrobes have changed. All those things have changed. We need to be patient with others. Patience as it relates to our relationship with ourselves. You need to be patient with yourself. That may be the hardest one, is to be patient with yourself. In Ecclesiastes, he says, the end of the matter is better than its beginning, and patience is better than pride. So I want you to tap yourself on the chest and say, I'm patient with me. No, not y'all pointing at me. No, you're patient with yourself, okay? Be patient with yourself. And sometimes we're our worst critics. And that can be, I really hate it when I hear people talking bad about themselves. I don't like to hear people talking bad about other folks, but I will get on to people for talking bad about themselves. Because, folks, listen to me. You are beautiful people. You are created in God's image. And God has made you, you're His workmanship. You're His masterpiece. And you're not a finished product, but be patient with yourself. I mean, sometimes people change their hair color because they don't like the way their hair looks. Or sometimes Bald men will go buy a toupee. I remember when I was in junior high school, we were actually playing a basketball game at Armorel. And our superintendent from Dell School showed up, and he'd been bald my whole life. I mean, I'm talking slick-headed bald. He was slick-headed bald my whole life. He walks in as we're having our game at Armorel. I'm getting ready to play basketball, and I look up in the stands, and I see, I'm not going to call his name, but I see our superintendent, and he's got a toupee. He's got a rag on his head, folks. He's got a rag on his head, and I mean, you could tell it was all fake. And we couldn't hardly play the game because we were laughing so hard at our superintendent, because I guess we got tired of, he got tired of all the bald jokes or what have you. But listen, folks, again, I understand if somebody, I'm not saying don't wear a toupee. Brother Elmer, if you want a toupee, get you a toupee. That's fine. But don't do it. I think you got a pretty head, man. I think you got a pretty head. Every time I look at Sister Joyce over there rubbing your head, I think, boy, she's going to get good luck. They say that bald men are bald because they've been thinking so much they wore the hair off their head. Polishing it, right? Okay. But people are not patient with themselves. They don't lose weight fast enough, or they don't gain weight fast enough. They don't get tall enough, or anything like that. And it's even moved into this. Impatience happens because people are impatient with themselves, that they don't want to wait till marriage to have sex, and it causes different things in their lives. They don't want to do the things that they're supposed to do because of impatience. They'll get them not being patient with themselves. They'll get themselves in deep debt. All kinds of things like that. And that's impatience with ourselves. I always counsel young people when I do a wedding, don't go out and buy a house right away. If they got a good job or whatever, but if they're young and they just, they're young, don't go out and buy, and don't try to buy a house like your parents have. Why? Because it took your parents 30, 40 years to get what they got. Don't try to be them. Things are slower. You have to take it slow on that. But be patient with yourself. It's an important thing. But how do I gain patience? Here's where he says it in Romans 5. And not only so, but we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience. Have you ever heard somebody say, that person's working my nerves? No, they're not. That person that's working your nerves, God's using to work on your patience. Next time you're going through a tribulation, or that person's working your nerves, say, God's working on my patience. You see, I said people ask me to pray for patience. When I pray for them, I say, God, I pray that you would just give them trials. I don't want them to have big, bad trials. But having trials in your life brings patience. Do you know why over the last couple of years I haven't given up? Because the 22 years previous to that, God had sent various trials my way to work on my patience. If I hadn't had some of those trials that I had gone through, I'd have done something else. And then your life, the trials that you've gone through, helps you with your patience. Michael, you've had trials since you were a baby. You could be the most patient person in the world because you've been through one, so you know you can get through it. When you've been through a trial, you know you can get through another one. And that's the thing you need to understand. When you've gone through it before, it may not be the same trial. That's why I know that I could go through a time when my son wasn't where he needed to be. I didn't want him to be like that. But I've seen it before. And I've seen what it's like when one comes back. And I've seen what it's like, how God can use different things and various things for patience I've been around this thing too long to give up. See, I almost gave up 4 years ago on October 2nd. On October 2nd, my brother came into my office. He'd never even been in my office. He said, "Have you heard if Billy had been in an accident?" I hadn't heard anything. Y'all know the story. We went down to, my brother had been in a horrendous accident. I had been to the med so many times as a pastor. I understood. I know what to look for. I know what the signs of dying are at the med. I've been there. And my wife showed up. She came down there too and met us down there. And they wouldn't let but 2 people go see my brother. They let his wife and they let me because I was a pastor. And I walked in to see my oldest brother, who was my hero. And I see him laying in that bed. And I see the head injuries now, and in my mind, and this is where my faith just plummeted. I mean, I see the broken bones. I see the trauma. They didn't know what to start with first. He had so many different things. Both legs broken. His left arm absolutely crushed. Head injuries. Skin completely off of his head. His head was so swollen. If you've ever seen a head injury where somebody's head is so swollen. I mean, and I looked at that, and when we left to come home that evening, it was late that night, I looked at Tanya and I said, "I'm going to be preaching my brother's funeral." Boy, what a great man of faith you got as a pastor. I said, "I'm going to be preaching his funeral by Friday," because I've seen it too many times. But over the next 6 months, patience set in. I had to get more patient during this time, because every time I went down there before my brother had surgery after surgery, he had 5 surgeries while he was in the med for 2 months. He had 1 surgery afterwards. And every time that I went to see him before he would have a surgery, when things got bad, my sister-in-law would look at me. They called me Jerome. She'd say, "What Bible verse do you have for me today?" She said, and she would look at me and she said, "What verse do you have to give me hope today?" That's what she was saying, Sister Patricia. And God, every time God sent me with a word to tell them to, even though I wasn't the greatest faith guy because I thought I was going to be preaching my brother's funeral, but can I tell you what's going to happen? 4 years ago, tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock, me and Tanya are meeting over at my mama's house to eat supper with my brother and his wife, who 4 years out of this, he drives. He's had to learn to be patient. He can drive a tractor. The first time I ever got to see him walk is when he walked through that door right over here into this church 8 months after his accident. And so my point to you is we have to be patient through trials. How do I know that I don't have to give up? Because the trials I've been through, the patience keeps me from giving up. Your trials are not a burden and they're not a curse. Your trials are the creators and the builders of patience in your life. This is the fruit that when we have it, we show it, the people say, "Wow, they have the goods." You're not going to be perfectly patient, but we can do like James. We must be patient. Heavenly Father, I thank you, dear God, for these beautiful people here. I thank you, dear God, that they've been patient with me for 12 years. I thank you, dear God, that they've been patient with you in their growth. I thank you, dear God, that they've been patient with themselves in their own personal growth spiritually, dear God. I thank you, dear God, that they're patient with others. Help us, dear God, to have more patience. Lord, we know we're going to face trials, and dear God, because of patience and because of that desire not to give up, dear Lord, you're going to keep working on us, and we're going to be all right. Lord, I pray your special blessings on each of these. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you. We love you. And I hope you have a great, great, wonderful, beautiful week. And be patient. So when you see somebody at Walmart and you have to be in line a long time, just be a little bit more patient this week.